oh, well, the trainers know, right? I'm going to suggest that they're actually recommending that you remain terminally average. They're putting you into a position where you always need them to guide you. They've got these beautiful physiques and they're telling you how to get there, but nobody ever gets there because they didn't get there doing what they're telling you to do. Feel the burn wasn't part of the training program. If you want to get stronger, you don't feel the burn. If you want to do bodybuilding, you certainly don't want to burn your muscles. That would be counterproductive. Today I'd like to pose a question for your consideration. I can even post some responses and answers later on of what I think the answer to the question is. But first I'd like you to consider a little bit the following scenario. If you stick your hand over an open flame, you get burned, and when you do that, we consider that burning to be damaging to you. If you get too much sun, especially on skin that isn't used to sun, we can easily burn, and when you burn your skin, that's considered a negative influence on our health. It doesn't feel good. In both cases, we get pain, and we know that's not good. That's how we know it's not good, is because there's pain associated. If the food in your stomach comes back up into your throat, what we call reflux, there's other names for it, heartburn, you experience heartburn. It's a burning feeling somewhere in here, whether it's way up or down or way down, different names, right? Gastric reflux disease, there's all sorts of names for it. But we consider that burning to be a negative experience. It hurts and it's harmful and it's doing damage, and if you ignore it long term, worse damage happens. We all recognize that when your feet burn, there's something wrong happening. And yet, in the world of fitness training, most gyms offer a variety of courses, and most personal trainers offer a variety of programs where they're going to teach you and encourage you to feel the burn. And I have to ask, if feeling burn is bad in every other situation, I mean, if it burns when you urinate, oh, this isn't good. If it burns almost anywhere ever, we go, no, we're doing damage to our body. Why would we then say, when we feel the burn, that's a good thing suddenly? I'll discuss this a little further, but I will go on record as to say that in the training system that I'm using to coach others, I'm never encouraging them to feel the burn. There's no training situation where feeling the burn would be advantageous to the athlete or to those wishing to get fitter, with the only exception being the very, very few sports where the person who can ignore the most burn during the course of their sport, their competition sport, right? The person who can continue to train through the most burn might have a chance at winning. This would be something in the 2 to 3 minute range of exertion levels. So half a mile running maybe. But the greats at that point still are not experiencing burn. But some of us might feel burn if we ran a half a mile. Really, I can't come up with a training situation where I would train athletes and encourage them to feel the burn. It just doesn't happen. It's not advantageous. You are doing harm. And the reason I can come out and say something like this is because muscles are fueled in different ways depending on how we use our muscles, depending on how long or for how long we use them. In the first couple seconds of an exertion, we're using what's called phosphocreatine, which in some countries is called creatine phosphate, so don't get confused, it's the same thing. But it's only good for a couple of seconds. And then after those few seconds, we switch immediately into what's called ATP, where we're releasing phosphates off of adenosine triphosphate molecules. Don't get all caught up in it. But again, this is a high energy release, and it's good for a few more seconds. And by the time 10 seconds or 7 seconds in reality, by the time 6 or 7 seconds have gone by, you've been through creatine phosphate, you've been through ATP, and you're getting into a type of fueling system known as anaerobic glycolysis, meaning that you're using sugar that's already in the muscle, and you're using it with such an intensive need for sugar immediately, right now, that there's not even time to call on oxygen. So you're using and utilizing the sugar much more rapidly than you can oxidize the muscles. And so you use what's called anaerobic glycolysis. There's no oxygen involved in this process, and it's good for an untrained person for almost a minute of activity. For a trained person, 1.5 minutes up to almost 2 minutes, they can go in oxidative glycolysis and develop, yes indeed, an oxygen debt. You get out of breath. When you finish, you're out of breath and you're catching your breath, but they can endure that oxygen debt without experiencing what we call the burn. Now, once you start to feel that burn, you're getting near the end of your ability to use anaerobic glycolysis, and you start to breathe even if you were holding your breath. In other words, if you were going to do 1 minute of activity, let's say you were going to run around a track and it took you 1 minute or 1 minute and 15 seconds or something to run around a track, you might do that and breathe 30 or 40 times while you go around. But you could actually also run all the way around that track while holding your breath, and you would do it at the exact same speed because the muscles aren't demanding oxygen for anaerobic glycolysis. Does your head want oxygen? Does your muscles, does your stomach, for instance, digestive system, do your skin want, everything else wants oxygen all the time, and it encourages you to breathe. But we all know, at least for most of us, that holding your breath for 1 minute is quite possible. And for a trained person, they can hold their breath for many minutes. So to hold your breath for 1 minute is quite possible. But while we exercise, for that first minute, we're in anaerobic glycolysis. We're not increasing the need for oxygen in the muscles, but we are building an oxygen debt. So eventually, you're going to have to make up that oxygen and you'll breathe. We have to look and go, okay. I'm going to say by the time you feel the burn, you should stop. That's the limit of your ability to comfortably use anaerobic glycolysis. And you should step back and either start walking or go to a gentler version, or whatever it is, the activity you're doing, find a version where you can continue to huff and puff, but in a sustainable way. This is called an aerobic exercise, and at that point we switch into what's called aerobic glycolysis to fuel the muscles. But today's question really was about the idea, the training concept. Oh, well, the trainers know, right? I'm going to suggest that they're actually recommending that you remain terminally average. They're putting you into a position where you always need them to guide you. They've got these beautiful physiques and they're telling you how to get there, but nobody ever gets there because they didn't get there doing what they're telling you to do. Feel the burn wasn't part of the training program. If you want to get stronger, you don't feel the burn. If you want to do bodybuilding, you certainly don't want to burn your muscles. That would be counterproductive. So if you're doing cardio, we don't feel the burn. It's a sustainable aerobic activity. It's just in that little zone of anaerobic glycolysis where you can't get it done quickly enough, and that's due to your fitness, or you have to switch over into aerobic activity because it's going to take 4 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to finish, in which case you need to huff and puff sustainably. Different people will describe that as you're a little out of breath, but when you talk it's breathy, but you can talk. You can still keep talking to the person next to you, so you know you can keep going. A better trained athlete might be able to go a little harder than that and barely able to talk and still sustain it, but it's oxidative. It's a longer term process. Feel the burn just has to do with that minute to minute and a half of all of a sudden it's not fun anymore. And it's not about failure because your muscles fail. It's about failure because there's too much pain to mentally endure. Why should we be training ourselves to endure pain when we're trying to become fitter? I think the two are counterproductive for each other, and I'm going to recommend that we never ever train till we feel the burn and then try to work through the burn. That's not the point of appropriate progressive fitness training.
My name is Paul Cerrone. I'm from Huntington Beach, California, and I just had the most amazing experience at the Raw Nature Retreat with the most amazing humans, having the most incredible education, athleticism, and connection that I've ever had in my life. One of the most beautiful places on the planet here in Spain. Super blessed to be here. Probably the most amazing health and growth experience of my life. If you're interested in improving your health, your athleticism, or just wanting to connect with beautiful people, I highly encourage you to come and check it out.